Hi and welcome to the channel. Today I brought you here to London to do something I've wanted to do for a long time. I am going to be walking the entire 9 miles of the Regents Canal, past some places like Regents Park, Camden and a few other really interesting little bits on the way. And there's so much history here that I'm going to try and keep this video as short and interesting as I can. But we're starting here at Limehouse, so let's get going. So as we just walk along the Limehouse Basin here, we're heading towards where the viaduct is, which is the official start of the footpath. The Limehouse Basin was basically dug out in the 1820s, I believe, and it's where the Thames River was connected to all the different canals around this area. And they're saying that 2,000-ton ships could actually be docked here in the basin, which is quite fascinating. I mean, now of course it's just full of these lovely little canal barges and people living here and enjoying it. But if you look closely, you can see that it's clearly got quite an industrial history. And as you can see in the footage of some of the old buildings that are actually still here. But you can walk all the way around the edge of it. So we're going to do that and then meet you at the start of the path. So it's said that the basin here was so full of ships and barges that you could actually walk from one side all the way along the other, literally from jumping from the boats, which seems quite incredible. But those ships that were arriving from all over the world, like places like Scandinavia, they were bringing coal, they were bringing timber, they were bringing ice for the butchers and fishmongers of London, and the ice cream makers of King's Cross apparently. It was all brought here. Right up until the late 1960s, I believe, when it did eventually close. But anyway, let's not jump the gun with the story. Let's get to the actual beginning of the canal. Now here's something interesting just here. If you can see that tower, it's actually called an accumulator tower. It was built in 1869 and it actually contained the hydraulic systems to power the cranes and some of the locks and all sorts around here. I mean, they actually restored it in the 1980s, but it's quite an interesting little feature, and apparently they can actually be found quite a lot around the East End if you know where to look. And this one is just next to the viaduct on the DLR if you're ever heading east. Take a look at it. And so here we have it, as it says, the Regents Canal. This is the official beginning of the actual Regents Canal with the Limehouse Basin behind us. But it's just behind me here that I want to take you for a quick look at, because this is the Blackwall Viaduct. Today it carries the DLR, like I think I said earlier, east out of the city. But it's actually thought to be one of the world's first railway viaducts. So everyone loves a viaduct, and I certainly appreciate a really old one. So here we have the first of many, what I believe are probably restored locks, and commercial road tunnel, which considering where I live in Norfolk, we don't have very many tunnels. You may believe this is quite small, but it's actually quite a significant one to us. So here we go. So a bit disappointed, we've just come out of the tunnel on the commercial road and already the towpath is closed. Apparently they're doing some work and we've got to take the divert up here, so I hope it's not too much of a divert away from the canal, because it seems a bit of a shame to have just started it and be finishing it already. And here we are, back on our canal towpath, which if you're visiting between June and September this year is going to be partially closed, but we obviously didn't know that. I imagine this video will go out way after then, so by the time you see it you'll probably be alright. But we've got a lovely lock keeper's cottage there and a beautiful lock with some Canadian geese. Lovely bit of infrastructure. But we are heading hopefully this way, and with any luck we won't have any more diversions. Now we just crossed under the C2C railway being carried by that bridge there, and we're just about to hit Mile End Park. Supposedly called so because it's meant to be a mile away from the centre of London, but in fact we're actually more like 2 miles, so I don't know whether somebody just wasn't very good at measuring or whether that's actually a complete myth. But just behind us we've got quite an interesting feature that I'm going to tell you a little bit about. So this large chimney here looks like it's some sort of old piece of industry left over from maybe a big factory that used to be here, but no. In fact, just below our feet here is a sewer, and this is pretty much just a giant stink pipe that's releasing all the horrible fumes and chemicals and gases or whatever from the sewer which runs below our feet. So I do believe it's still Victorian, so it's quite nice to look at, but not quite as exciting as we'd once hoped. Just arrived at Johnson's Lock number 10, as it says here, and look at this area. Look how beautiful is that. You can tell obviously that it was quite industrial at one point, but they've really done a lovely job keeping this looking nice. So for quite some time now we've been walking alongside Mile End Park, and actually it's quite nice. Apparently here they've got children's parks and climbing walls, and they've got some nice little features here, and they've done quite a nice job sprucing it up, I think, over the last few years. One of the Regents Canal's many oddities, not quite sure what it's meant to be. It looks a bit like a sink plunger. If you've got any ideas there, or you know, let me know. And this, I don't know, like a giant fish tail. Any ideas, Finley? He don't care, he's just happy to have a bench. Anyway, on we go. And towards the end of Mile End Park, we got quite a significant little thing to show you, because just here is in fact the junction of the Hertford Union Canal, and if you travel up here, or not even a mile, you'll reach the River Lee navigation, which has got a lovely walk which will take you all the way to the Olympic Park, but maybe that's one for another day. So just gone past the lovely lockkeeper's cottage at Ford's Lock, which used to have stables for the horses, obviously, that used to run up and down here, of course. Just behind me, I've got Victoria Park with its rather interesting Chinese looking building. If you know the one I'm talking about, you'll know exactly what it is, but that's something that you see every day. Underneath another bridge, this one, Victorian. So many lovely bridges along here, but this one's got quite an interesting feature, because if you just look here, you can make out all these grooves, which of course would have been where all the tow ropes from the horses would have sort of worn it away over the years. So that's quite cool to see. Just coming up to some massive gas holders. I'm going to presume that since they're still here, they're probably Victorian. They're very likely listed. I wonder if they're going to do something similar to what they've done further up the canal at the Gasholder Park, which we're going to show you a bit later. But it looks like they're certainly doing something here at the minute. And here we bring you part 2 of interesting features on the Regents Canal. Here we've got some sort of shark coming out, and in fact there's sharks all over the roof as well. I have no idea what or why or where they came from, but certainly interesting. So it's nice to see that lock being used up there. Actually one of 13 locks, I think, along the whole of the Regents Canal. But I've not been filming for about the last sort of mile and a half, because to be honest with you, other than sort of flats and just bits of old industry, not anything particularly interesting, there's not really been much to show you. We're sort of in line at the moment with, I think, Shoreditch Park. Maybe we're coming up to halfway, hopefully. But more interesting bits up here. So we've just reached quite a nice little area. This is City Road Basin. It's got a lovely lock. It's got some places to sort of eat and drink, and a little bit of history to have a little look at. But I think this is pretty much the official halfway. I hope so. Finley, certainly hope so. Let's keep going. So here we are approaching Islington, and when the canal was built, I suppose they weren't able to actually build the canal through Islington, so instead they were kind of given no option but to build a tunnel. And here we have it. I'll turn you around and show you the Islington Tunnel. Now this was built in 1818, and it actually took 3 years to build, and unfortunately, being 875 metres long, it doesn't actually have a towpath. So if you're doing this little walk, just be aware that you will be expected to divert up of one of these ways here. We're going to be taking this one. And yes, you shall have to take a bit of a detour, but apparently, I do believe, there is some quite good signposts telling you sort of the way to go to get back onto the canal. So quite impressive. I mean, I wish I could see down it, but maybe when we get to the other end. But looks like we're off on the canal, and for a good sort of 10 or 15 minutes we'll be tramping the streets of Islington. Can't pass by here without checking out the floating bookshop, of course, Word on the Water. Apparently one of the best bookshops in the world. And here we are at Granery Square, which, as you can see, is quite a busy and popular part of the canal. And I do believe there's quite a fascinating fountain up here, which my mum's gone for a look at. So I guess we better find her. Let's just hope she ain't got her shoes and socks off yet. And here they are. Apparently there's 1,000 choreographed fountains here. Probably really lovely on a hot day, but not a little bit overcast today, so I'm not fancying it myself. But we're going to get back on the canal. This was just a little detour, and I can see in the distance there's plenty more to show you. Right, back onto the quiet of the canal. That was quite a lively area. Never been there before, but I definitely recommend you check it out and bring your swim shorts and a towel maybe in the summertime. I wish we had. But anyway, we've run out of time now, so we need to quickly get down to the next thing to show you. Now, just behind us up here is in fact Gasholder Park, made up by quite a few Victorian gas holders, built in the 1850s, I do believe. And they're all Grade 2 listed, which is why they're obviously still here. But made of cast iron, I mean, they are really massive. I do believe the biggest one, number 8, used to be on the other side of the canal near King's Cross, and when they upgraded the station they actually had to dismantle it. They sent it off to Yorkshire, I think, to be completely refurbished, and then sent it back here again. But it's quite amazing, as you can see, what they've actually done with them. By because they couldn't knock them down, so they put apartments in them. I must say, Great Yarmouth Borough Council, if you're listening and you want something to do with your Grade 2 listed gas holder, this is certainly quite a good idea. So if you know this canal well, I think you would agree that every time you come out of a road tunnel, you seem to be brought into yet another different type of area. And this one certainly doesn't disappoint. So I'm going to turn you around and show you. So here's something a bit different for you. Nicholas Grimshaw's 1988 modernist houses here on Grand Union Walk, I think it's called. They rest assured me that they're actually quite nice on the inside, although I'm not too sure I'm particularly convinced by the outside, but they probably won lots of architectural awards and all sorts of things. But if you're after a 3-bedroom house and you've got about £3.5 million to play with, apparently they come up for sale now and again. And here we are at Camden Locks. And of course you can't come to Camden without taking a look at the market and of course the high street. So we're going to take a little detour off the towpath to take a look at those. So that is definitely enough of Camden Market and High Street. Let's get back to the canal. Now, just next to Camden Market, we have this large Grade 2 listed warehouse over here, known as the Interchange Warehouse. It was actually built so that the canal, railway and roads could connect with each other. And it has actually got a large labyrinth of tunnels and vaults leading to an underground dock where the goods could be put on trains or carts or just stored. And if you just look here, you can actually see the entrance from the canal to those underground vaults. Now, these vaults actually predate the warehouse, and the entrance is often known as Dead Dog's Hole, as often animal carcasses flowing down the canal would end up getting washed inside. If you want an idea of what it actually looks like, then a glimpse can be seen in the Bond film Spectre. And we also know some urban explorers that have taken a kayak inside there and had a little look. So I'll pop a little link in the description if you're interested in that. But unfortunately for us, this is about the best view that we can get without a boat, I'm afraid. Now we're just heading back over the canal and onto where the towpath is. Unfortunately, it's not quite so easy to get that way, so we've decided to take this bridge, which I believe is one of the busiest footbridges in the whole of London. And we can see that great big interchange building again there. But this bridge has actually got some interesting features because you can see all the lumps and bumps out of it again, where those ropes pulling the canal boats would have been dragged along, and obviously years and years it's worn it away. But we're now going to head over the top of Dead Dog's Tunnel, or Dead Dog's Hole as it's called, and carry on down the canal. And just in case you're wondering, the building behind me is not in fact a medieval castle. I believe it's owned by the Electricity Board. I don't actually know why they decided to make them look like castles, but hey, this is Camden, why not? Anything goes. So here we are at another bit of a landmark. If you've ever been here, you may have been to this restaurant, maybe for dinner. I haven't, but apparently Paul McCartney likes to come. I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, just to the side of it, actually, there used to be a branch of another canal, which unfortunately has long been filled up, I do believe, with rubble from the Blitz. Yeah, that's there. There's some remnants if you go and have a little look, but unfortunately we don't have time today. But next stop is Regent Park, and there's certainly a few things to show you there, so let's get going. So here we have Regents Park, which is of course famous for London Zoo, or London Zoological Gardens as it was called back in the day. It was opened in 1828 and it actually was the world's oldest scientific zoo. So it was originally opened just for a collection of sort of scientific studies and things like that. But I do believe it went on to have some of the menagerie collections from like Windsor Castle and the Tower of London. Back in the day, the Tower of London was full of animals, and I think eventually they decided they wanted to put them somewhere. So they put them in London Zoo. Different kings used to give each other animals as gifts, I think, to bankrupt them, and that's why the tower ended up full of animals. But with a collection of nearly 15,000 animals, it's apparently one of the biggest zoos in the United Kingdom. And you can in fact arrive on boat here up the canal, because there's actually a gate there if that's how you want to arrive. Of course, if you don't want to pay to get in, you can always check out like the monkeys from here for free. Now, the bridge we're approaching might look pretty insignificant. It's actually called the Macclesfield Bridge to most people, but it's got a bit of a reputation as being known as blow-up bridge, and there's a very good reason for that. Because in October 1874, around 5 a.m, a train of barges was actually carrying gunpowder and petroleum all the way down the canal here, en route to the Midlands, I think, when for sort of some unknown reason it actually exploded, killing three of the crew members and destroying nearby houses. Apparently it could be heard up to 20 miles away, this explosion, and of course the bridge was completely demolished. So as you can see, the bridge got rebuilt, and apparently they did it only in about 5 days, which is quite amazing, and you would never tell unless you looked very closely. Of course, the brickwork was completely and utterly obliterated and had to be completely replaced, but in fact these iron pillars were not completely destroyed, and so they decided to reuse them. And if you look very closely, you can see that in fact the tow rope marks are on the wrong side of the pillar, for when they put them back they actually put some of them the wrong way round. And that is in fact pretty much the only sign that this quite impressive bridge was ever rebuilt. Now, as for the animal enclosures that apparently got damaged during the explosion, I don't know how quickly they rebuilt them, but apparently some animals actually escaped. I don't know if that's true. But the blast from that explosion was heard 20 miles away, so with those enclosures just behind us, not too far at all, I wouldn't be surprised if it was true. So if you like your canals, you probably like your lost rivers. We've actually got the River Tyburn passing through this footbridge. It's actually an aqueduct, more so than what it is actually a bridge. And so we reached the beautiful multi-million pound villas of Regent Park. They may look as if they were built in the 18th century, but actually they were built in like the 1980s, I do believe. But if you've got a spare sort of 300 million pounds down the back of the sofa, then you may be lucky enough to own one of these one day. Big old blue thing there actually carries electricity cables over the canal, because you may not know it, but in fact the entire canal towpath contains electricity cables. And you may be wondering why. Well, in the 1980s the canal was in a bit of a sorry state, to say the very least, and the towpaths weren't even actually walkable really, and the electricity board were looking for somewhere to lay some cables through London, and somebody had a bright idea that, well, why don't we run them alongside the canal, the towpath, and afterwards they made it all nice and people started walking it, and it's become the sort of popular canal walk that it is today. But if you look quite closely, you can actually tell that all the way along there are something to do with electricity, because it doesn't mention it, but take a little look if you're ever walking. So slight detour again off the canal because of the Maida Hill tunnel, of course. Got some nice buildings in the background. Hopefully we won't be walking too far for this one. And back to the canal. And so here we are, finally, after 9 miles, Maida Vale in the city of Westminster, better known as Little Venice. Now, I don't know if anybody really knows why it's called Little Venice. Some people attribute it to the poet Robert Browning, who I believe lived around here somewhere. But I think it's actually quite a recent name. But I don't know, some of you probably think maybe it just looks a bit like Venice. I don't know. Legends has it that the Germans actually mistook this area for being the Thames back in the Second World War and actually bombed it, thinking they were bombing the Thames. I mean, I don't know if that's actually true or not, but it's a nice, peaceful little area in the middle of Westminster here. Was it worth the 9 miles walk? I'll tell you tomorrow. Of course, this little area is quite important because it's the junction of where the Regents Canal meets the Paddington branch of the Grand Union Canal, which then goes all the way up to the Midlands. I think maybe that's certainly one for another day. So I hope you've enjoyed our little explore along the Regents Canal here, something that like I said at the beginning, I've always wanted to do and I've never actually done. It took a lot longer than I thought it was going to take, but I think that's because there's been so many interesting things to see. But if you've enjoyed this little explore around a part of London and you want me to do some more, then I'm quite happy to come back and do some more, so let me know. Also, if you want to see some more videos, then check out the channel, give us a like, give us a subscribe, it's always really appreciated. We've also got Patreon, so you can check that out too, it'll all be in the link below. But anyway, so here from the Regent Canal in London, as always, thanks for watching, bye bye.